Why are you crying? The episode's finished. Everything has to end. Otherwise, nothing would ever get started. What are you doing here? I don't know. Get out! Okay. Yes, the episode has ended. But now that means it's time for the review. I'm sorry, Bill. I've joined the monks. You can tell because they've given me one of their robes and new sunglasses that aren't as colourful as the others. But why? Doctor, why have you joined the monks? Oh, you see, Bill, that's what I was going to tell you in the last review's new sketch. Is that, well, you and I just weren't going to be together. And so I had to go and find somebody else who would understand me. And the monks, they understand me. And I understand them. So, yes, I went to join the monks. Is this because I like women? What about me? Nardi! Oh, Nardal, I'm sorry. It just wasn't going to work between us. I'm sorry. I honestly, it was going to work between me and Bill more, and that didn't go down so well. So, yeah, sorry, Nardi. It just wasn't going to work. I trusted you. You were my friend, my teacher. You were the greatest man I knew. And I have a very particular taste in men, even more so than my foster mother. And this is how you repay me and everybody on Earth? This is how you repay Nardal, your other closest friend at that point in time of this series taking place. You know what? Fuck you! No! I'm regenerating. No, I've still got 5 more episodes before I regenerate into Jodie Whittaker. You know, she doesn't have as many episodes as me, and she probably won't get as many episodes as me unless she does series 14 and 15, so, fuck it. I'm kidding! I'm still here for 5 more episodes, and the rest of this one. You didn't think I was really going to regenerate 5 episodes early, did you? Oh, and I got my side back as well. And by the way, I wasn't really with the monks. Don't worry. This was all part of my plan. Let's go. I still like running. What an arse. What a bloody arse. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my Revisitation review of Doctor Who, Series 10, Episode 8, The Lie of the Land. Now, because I mentioned at the end of my period, at the end of the World review, I kind of expected to go into this episode hating it, or come out of this episode hating it, rather, and rant about it, but actually, no. It's still one of the weakest episodes of the series, and it's definitely the weakest episode of the Monk trilogy. And it has gone down in opinion from when I watched it back in 2017, when it was a 7 out of 10. However, I was expecting to hate it. I was expecting to rip into it. But ultimately, it just turned out to be It's just Actually, it kind of starts out awesomely. It's actually a really great start. But as it goes along, it gets weaker and weaker. And it just ends up being meh overall. So, yeah, a bit like with Closing Time in the Wedding of River Song. It starts out great, ends up becoming meh at the end with a few questionable, not so good elements into it. So overall, it's I know some people would say those 2 episodes are bad, just generally. Then maybe some people would say the same about this one. But as for me, I say they started off great and then got worse over the course of the episodes and ended up being and same for Love and Monsters as well. At least with Smile, it was just that the ending was a bit of a cop-out. At least the rest of it was still pretty strong. So it still ended up being a good episode as opposed to an or okay episode. I'll also mention now, this episode is written by Toby Whithouse, and it's his last episode so far of the show, which is a shame because prior to this one, he did some really strong episodes. School Reunion was brilliant. Vampires of Venice was also really great. Series C, did he do Series 6? Yeah, God Complex, that was awesome. Captain Mercy, that was probably his weakest script prior to this one, but it was still good. And then Under the Lake Before the Flood, that's probably my favourite of his scripts. That was brilliant. Amazing, and definitely the best story, Series 9, After Heaven Sent. But he seems to have taken a bit of a step down with this episode. I'm also surprised that Stephen Moffat didn't co-write this one, like he did with Pyramid at the End of the World with Peter Harness. Then again, after Zygon Inversion, they are a pretty good team, especially when it comes to the warning about humanity being a bit stupid side, which people probably consider preachy, which it kind of is, but it's also an important warning. At least they're better at doing it than Ed Heim. Yeah, so I'm surprised Moffat didn't co-write this script or isn't credited for co-writing or co-editing this script. And I wouldn't be surprised if he had been, he probably would have been the one who kind of screwed it up at the end. But no, it's Whithouse and only Whithouse as far as credits concerned, although maybe Moffat did have a hand in it, or the script editor had a hand in it behind the scenes and they're just not credited. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame that Toby Whithouse's final Doctor Who story is probably his weakest, which is such a shame. So I hope he does come back to write an episode in the future, A, to redeem himself, and B, because he's such a great writer generally. There have been some people thinking maybe he could be a future showrunner, and I think out of all of the potential contenders, he would be a very good choice because of great scripts, apart from maybe this one, and because he's done quite a few great scripts as well. Actually, Mark Gatiss is another good choice, by the way. But ones like, say, Neil Cross, Jamie Matheson, and Maxine Alderton, Pete Matig, they've only done a few episodes. Even if they're good, they've only done a few episodes. You need to have a few more episodes on your list, like what Stephen Moffat had when he took over. He had 4 stories at least done that were very popular. Chris Chibnall had at least 4 stories as well. Gatiss and Whithouse are good choices because they've had quite a few good scripts on there. Some of them might be a bit unpopular, but they've got a couple of good ones. So I think when it comes to future showrunners, they need to have a good couple of episodes on their list, not just 1 or 2, like some of the other suggested ones. But yeah, I know Russell T Davies technically didn't write anything before he took over, but that was the very start of the Revived series. When it comes to the Revived series successors, I think they should have at least written 3 stories or 3 episodes at least before being they are a serious contender, as opposed to a name being thrown around. But anyway, so back to this episode. So the plot of this episode sees the monks have taken over the world, and they've kind of helped guide humanity, but at a price. Humanity does not get free will, although they are supposedly friends with the monks. It seems that this whole utopia, living together peacefully. Unfortunately, it's not quite the case because the monks have turned the Earth into a massive fascist dictatorship with this whole memory act thing. So people try to say the monks have only been here a few months, if they've broken away from the belief of the monk being there all this time, then they are sent to work camps. Also, if they possess a box of comics for some reason. But yeah, so the monks have turned Earth into a massive fascist dictatorship, and it's kind of a eerie mix of The Sound of Drums with Turn Left and any story that kind of does a fascist dictatorship story. I don't know if Doctor Who's done that much. In honesty, I suppose Inferno is probably the best example. So yeah, it's a good mix of Inferno, The Sound of Drums, and Turn Left, with this really bleak utopian future with the main characters on the run, sort of fugitives from the monks who have turned, and also that lady who arrests a woman who has broken away from the programming, I suppose. That is a very Sound of Drumsy-esque scene to me, because with that woman from Sound of Drums and also 42, who was talking to Francine and Clive Jones. So yeah, also that woman has a really pissed off face for most of the episode. She looks like she's been trained at the Chris Barry School of how to do a grumpy face. Chris Barry, by the way, is the actor in Red Dwarf, and he probably would have been the actor in this role if it was a male character. Or at least that's who I think it would have been. So this woman has a really pissed off face all the time. She's just there to be a bit of a grumpy character when she is on screen. She doesn't really get an awful lot of moments, but it does kind of remind me of that woman from 42 and Sound of Drums that came to the Jones House family. It's kind of like one of Mr. Saxon's big enforcers in the law sort of thing, like this big boss lady. And of course, the whole alternative universe stuff is very much tight turn left, and Inferno is the biggest connection with a fascist dictatorship in the Doctor Who universe, or at least on screen. Anyway, so Bill's the only property person who remembers the monks stuff beforehand. However, she's starting to wonder whether what she knows is true or not, whether it's just dreams, but she hasn't spoken out like other people because of what I basically just mentioned. The monks would either have them arrested and sent to work camps, or they will kill them, basically, as we see. So, yeah, things are a bit tough for Bill, and she started talking to a imaginary version of her mother, but then Nardal turns up, and he has a fantastic line where he says, "It's me, Nardi!" Fantastic. But yeah, he goes to see Bill, and he says he's found the Doctor after getting new lungs. So they try to rescue the Doctor, who is on this prison ship off the coast of Scotland, and he's been doing messages for the monks. He seems to have teamed up with them, and when they get there, he turns out to have teamed up the monks. He's joined them, but then it's revealed that he hasn't. He tricks Bill into shooting him. And reveals he doesn't, and then they go and trying to speak to Missy to learn about the monks, and this is where she reveals that she pushed a child into a volcano thing, which is the thing Doctor Who Annual 2018 had as the thing that the people from Extremis used as the reason to have her executed after she made defenses for other things that the Annual mentions. But that's just for fun. That's all for fun. Don't take it too seriously. But anyway, so Missy basically tells them how to stop the monks. Is basically the person who let them invade. Basically, they have to kill that person. So what the Doctor decides to do instead is go to the central pyramid to try and put the memories back into everybody's mind by attaching himself to the system. But that doesn't work, so Bill does it instead because she's the person who let them in. And it doesn't start to work, but then her memory of her mum is able to help break through, and it becomes a symbol, which kind of ties in with the pilot of the pictures that the Doctor sent her just because he was being nice. But like I said in I think it's the Experimental Pyramid at the End of the World review, over the course of the series, she's been having this imaginary version of her mum, just imagining her there. She talks to a picture in Knock Knock. She kind of thinks she's talking to her in Oxygen. And now over the course of this trilogy, she's kind of gotten her as an imaginary friend to talk, just someone to talk to, basically, over the course of this episode. And it's almost like when she's talking to her in later points of the episode, it's like a diary entry sort of thing, an audio diary entry. Bill's mum doesn't really have an important role after this episode in this series, but Bill, having lived under the monks for such a long time, gives her some sort of a resistance that will be helpful for resisting another alien programming in a future episode. Cybermen! So, yeah, this is still some pretty interesting ideas, and Bill's able to throw off the monk doing the thing, and is able to reset everything. The monks are sent away, everyone remembers what happened, and just the stuff that they left behind is just left behind, nobody remembers. Both some good ideas and some interesting ideas, like the Doctor recruiting a lot of people and then giving them these headphone things to listen to Bill on a tape thing in order so they don't get tricked by the monks. But one of them's tape gets damaged, so they have to they start thinking the Doctor's the enemy now, and then Nardal knocks them out with not Venusian Aikido, but something similar to it. Nardal knows. Don't worry, Venusian Aikido will return in a couple of episodes' time in Series 11, but it will be a couple of episodes' time. It's the Ghost Monument, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 episodes. 7 episodes to go till Venusian Aikido comes back, albeit briefly. It then comes back in Kablam as well, and that's it so far. But it will be the Doctor who does it. But Lion and Land, it does start to get a bit disappointing as the series goes on. Because the first kind of quarter, first half, first third, the first 18 or so minutes, this is a fantastic stuff. Like I said, it's a mixture of Inferno, Sound of Drums, and Utopia, and not Utopia, Turn Left. It blends together really well, and some really great stuff going for it. But once the Doctor kind of starts tricking Bill into doing this, Bill kind of snaps, I guess, and she just gets out the gun and shoots the Doctor. I suppose we should have seen a bit more emotional stuff for her character over this time period before that happens, but I kind of understand why she did it. And then the Doctor reveals it was all a trick, and I can understand why he did that as well, but it doesn't completely quite work, and I know it's played a little bit off for comedy as well once he has done it. He's done a bit too comedic. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. Once this happens, it starts to not be as great. It doesn't quite reach the same heights as earlier on. It's not great. The acting is brilliant from the main cast, especially including Michelle Gomez as Missy. Actually, the stuff with Missy in the vault is good, but you could have cut it out, and it wouldn't really have changed much apart from the Doctor needing some information, but it still could have been a cameo or something. It's just there so that we can start the Missy redemption arc and say, oh yeah, she's back in this episode. She doesn't really contribute an awful lot to the story apart from telling them how to defeat the monks, but even then you take a while to actually get to that in the actual scene. So yeah, Missy here, they could have cut the scene down a bit in the writing, and it could have been a bit better, actually. Even though I want more Michelle Gomez Missy, but still, it didn't really contribute an awful lot to what we saw in this episode, besides the actual reveals that she says. And at the end of it, it's kind of a weak climax. It's not that good. I mean, Bill using her mum to save the world, it's a good idea, but I think just the way it was handled or executed, I'm not entirely sure, but something about this episode doesn't completely work in the second half. Once we had the Doctor be shot, it starts just not being as good. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know. Maybe I'm being more harsh on it than I should be, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel as good as some of the other episodes in this series. It's just, I mean, it's not awful, but yeah, like I said, I was expecting to actually hate it more, but it's just, I guess it just doesn't reach its full potential, I guess. Maybe that's why we should have had a fourth episode, which I speculated in Extremis. We might have needed a fourth episode. Maybe one episode that starts from when the monks have just taken over and Bill's experiencing this new universe, and then part 4 takes place 6 months later, and the cliffhanger of episode 3 would be the Doctor has indeed joined the monks when Bill's looking for him, and then part 4 is rescuing him and finding out that he was actually tricking the monks, and then the whole finishing up stuff. Yeah, maybe that's what would have been better. But as we got it, as we have it here, I'm not sure. Just something that doesn't quite fit, and maybe it's the climax. Maybe the climax just isn't that great. But yeah, there's something that doesn't quite work for this story, especially after the heights of the opening. So I'm not going to go on a bit too much more about the episode, but I thought it was all right. It's probably still the weakest of the series, but I don't know. There's something I can't put my finger on that doesn't quite work, and it's mostly to do with that last third. I think what it is that I'm focusing more on it as an individual episode, but I think possibly it might be the fact that it's a kind of a weak ending to the trilogy. That's what it might be. Pyramid is probably the keystone, but this one is probably the one that shows off what the monks are capable of the most, but I don't think we get an awful lot of that either. There's a little bit, but not an awful lot. That might be another thing. The monks don't really do an awful lot, especially in the middle. And yeah, there's not even that much resistance. There's a few monks in the pyramid that's trying to kill people. They're trying to kill the soldiers, but that's really about it. There's like 2 or 3 of them. Also, they can use electricity now to kill people, like the silence. Okay. I guess they're going to have some sort of weapon in them, but in that case, they might as well use the silence. So yeah, I think as the conclusion to this trilogy, it doesn't quite fit. And as an individual episode, there is still something missing there as well. So yeah, this episode doesn't really work for both either. I mean, Extremis had that same issue, but I think the issue was that there was stuff there, but it didn't quite... it started to unravel when you started thinking about it. Here, there's just something that's missing. and I can't really put my finger on what, but it just feels like there is something missing, and that is a massive shame. So overall, I will be giving The Lie of the Land a 6 out of 10. Yeah, this has gone down from my previous review score of 7. I don't know what it is. It's just that something didn't quite fit, and I knew that something didn't quite fit last when I first watched it. When I did my original review, as well as rewatches, like for the ranking, or when I'm watching it on the Series 10 Steelbook. Did I watch it again for the ranking? Not sure, but I definitely watched it again on the Blu-ray Steelbook. But yeah, this something doesn't quite work for this episode, and it ultimately lets it down a little bit. But then again, you also got some really great stuff earlier on that also contributes to it and is actually really great. But it's not awful, which is what I was expecting it to be worse, actually. I was expecting to dislike it a heck of a lot more on this rewatch. Then again, I'm a more positive person than most people, so yeah, maybe people would dislike this more than I do. It's all down to personal preference. So that's my review of The Lie of the Land, and that's it from the Monk trilogy. Could have been better. Could have been a lot better. So next time we'll be looking at episode 9 of Doctor Who Series 10, Revisitation Reviews, and the penultimate single-part story of the series. And it is the currently the last episode to be written by Mark Gatiss, and the last episode to feature the Ice Warriors, at least on the screen anyway. And it is, of course, Empress of Mars, which, at time of recording this review, I haven't rewatched it yet, but at time of recording this review, either that episode or Seeds of Death are the best, one of those two are the best television Ice Warrior stories. I'll make a final decision with the Empress of Mars Revisitation review, but it'll be either that or Seeds of Death, basically. And then after that, it's the Eaters of Light, which is going to be contending with this episode, and the Twice Upon a Time is the weakest episode of the series, and then the fucking awesome World Enough in Time and Doctor Falls right after that. Woo! So 4 more episodes left, 3 more stories. Oh, and a Christmas special after that. So thank you for watching this review. See you guys next time for Empress of Mars. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne YouTube channel.